Welcome, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about the college football playoff brackets and our predictions. Joining us today, we have Sheeb, who is an Oregon Ducks fan,
Hello.
and Red, the host of the Jersey Tales, who is a Louisville Cardinals fan.
Go Cards.
So basically, this season, it was hectic in its own ways. And when we got to the selection part for the playoffs, it received a lot of controversy, and rightfully so in its own ways. We feel like there were a couple of teams that may have gotten snubbed, or maybe not, or if the committee did it right. There was just a bunch of controversy about it overall. But
At
we
least Notre Dame was left out.
see, which is it's kind of crazy. I agree with them being left out in a way, but I also don't. Because I also really wanted Alabama to stay out of this really bad, after blowing them out in the SEC championship. That's just
It's fine. They're not going to make it past the first round anyway. But also, Alabama's got more quality wins than Notre Dame does, and Notre Dame, they had their two opportunities to show they were a playoff caliber team at the beginning of the season, and they fell short. And then no matter how much the AP wanted to rank everyone else that they played down the stretch, they just didn't have a resume that said it was a playoff caliber team. I'm sorry.
yeah, that is true in the end. You got to win your important games, and their two most important games was against Texas A&M and Miami, and that head-to-head to Miami really was the crucial spot for the reason why they didn't make it.
Yeah.
And I definitely see what you mean there. I guess I'm just a little salty about Bama still making it.
Yeah. All the controversy came from the committee just not being clear on their criteria, because they had Notre Dame always over Miami until it mattered, which didn't make sense because it ended up on Championship Sunday, on Selection Sunday after all the championships have been played, that they just magically jumped Miami over Notre Dame, even though neither team played. And so if the head-to-head always mattered, then we should have kept Miami ahead of Notre Dame earlier, but they kind of dug themselves a hole. I think they just assumed that Miami was going to lose again, and it was going to sort itself out, and they wouldn't have backed themselves into this corner. But Miami pulled it together and really improved over the latter half of the season, and they had painted themselves into this corner. And because the head-to-head absolutely should matter. And Notre Dame looks good. I think that they should have been in, but at the expense of Alabama. But then you get into kind of the hypocrisy of, do conference championship games matter? Because while I agree that teams shouldn't get punished for losing a conference championship game, Alabama and BYU were in exact same scenario where Alabama, they both got thrashed in their conference championship games. Bama didn't get dropped, but they talked about how that was the reason why BYU got dropped. And so the committee just is way too inconsistent on their messaging on what matters and what doesn't, and then they make these storms for themselves.
Yeah.
The thing is that the committee was definitely going to put another SEC team in.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Alabama, as much as I would love to see Vandy just complete my Cinderella arc, I do think that Bama is the one SEC team that was left remaining that deserved if they have to put an SEC team in the slot, then you go for it. The BYU situation, you look at their schedule again, you look at their quality losses, you look at their quality wins. See that everyone's focusing on the number of losses. I keep hearing that. This is what we talked about this week, is that everyone was talking about the number of losses, how many losses, who they lose to. And that's fine, but you also got to look at who did they beat. And if you look at who Notre Dame beats after that point, their two only chances of playing a playoff caliber team was gone after the second week. And yes, you managed to beat a ranked Pitt who happened to be ranked the week of your match. You happened to beat a ranked USC who guess when they got ranked? The week of the match with UNC. And it's like, they beat a ranked Navy, which again, I thought that ranking was, again, it was another one of those things that they just do just to give Notre Dame's schedule a little bit of a bump, just to make them seem relevant. And again, you go back through the history of Notre Dame, they've always been on the benefit of it. And then the fact that they threw a little hissy fit and they didn't want to play in, arguably, if you're not on this bracket, the next best bowl that you want to play in is the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
And they decided they weren't good enough to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which to me, I'm just done with Notre Dame.
For shame.
Yeah.
You got to play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. You have to.
Yeah. The Pop-Tart
What is it,
Bowl
Notre
is...
Dame? Are you scared of BYU? Is that what it is? Or are you scared of like enjoying some good old-fashioned American Pop-Tarts? Which one is it? I want to know.
The Pop-Tarts Bowl is the People's National Championship. And
Yeah.
I'll agree. Notre Dame, I like Notre Dame. My dad went there, so I grew up being a Notre Dame fan before I got exposed to Oregon. So I'm partial to them. However, I will wholly agree that the way they've handled this, like just take it on, like you didn't win your games. You played yourself out. Like, go enjoy your time at the Pop-Tart Bowl, send your seniors off with the win, and just go have some fun. But the whole, like, we're gonna go take our ball and we're gonna go home is just like, it's so bad for the sport. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, no,
In fact, I hope that like Georgia Tech shows up and they just have a field day. They
same.
just have a
They do,
blast.
yeah.
And that's
they show
wild.
it. They show how much fun that bowl is, because like if you haven't watched the by the way, like if you're just like tuning in and you're like, well, what's the deal with this Pop-Tart Bowl? Like, they know how to have fun as a bowl. Like they figured out the secret sauce into make it, putting on a good bowl.
Exactly.
They've got fantastic mascots. They
Yeah.
interact with the refs. They like it's fun, you know. And again, it's a college sport. Like, you want fun.
It should be
right?
fun. Yeah, it should be fun. Yeah, like not everything. That's the yeah. Well, we're gonna go off on another tangent, but I think that this whole mentality of it being you get to the playoff or your season is a complete failure is also like, it's such a bummer because
yes.
Oh, yeah.
like college, like kind of like what you said, like the sport's supposed to be fun, and bowls have their own flavor of fun, and like each one is its own experience, and if
Thank
you're
you.
if you're losing those where half the teams are just backing out now because they don't have a chance to go win a national championship, then you're losing a part of what makes the sport so great. And
Yes.
so yeah, I think we need to have a whole bracket of Pop-Tart bowls. Like, everything needs to be
Yes.
a Pop-Tart bowl.
Yes.
Give me
We need
a
a
Pop-Tart bowl,
Yes.
Pop-Tartification of our
bowl,
sport.
I
Duke
agree.
mayo.
That would be so peak, honestly. And I,
The high cholesterol bowl. Let's just, the high cholesterol.
yeah. I basically really feel like Notre Dame pulling the whole, we're going to sit out of the bowl game thing. It isn't fair to the seniors. Biggest thing is
Yeah.
I have a heart for seniors, because when they play football, they have a passion in the sport, right? They got there for a
Right.
reason. Imagine you play your final game and you didn't even realize it. You just get the notification that you're just sitting out for that week. It'd be kind of a heartbreaker if I was in this situation, because I know how I felt when I was a senior and I left ball. It was not really the funnest. So, I mean,
No.
That's-
no. And that's the other thing too, is if there, I bet you there's either as many eyes in the first round of some of these games watching the Pop-Tart Bowl,
Oh, yeah.
just because of the spectacle of the Pop-Tart Bowl. So if your goal is to give your seniors as much NFL exposure, scouting exposure as you can possibly do, which should be your goal in a bowl game, to improve their draft stock, and you decline to take them to, again, what I consider, and a lot of people consider, the most premier non-playoff bowl, they're just doing their players a disservice. Like, hey, if you're a Notre Dame recruit that's like considering going there, I would step back and be like, look, if you guys are going to be a bunch of babies, maybe I want to go play with like a team that will accept the conditions of their schedule.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. And it's just like bowl games. Yeah, like I mean, I'll be beating the same notes, but like bowl games are a really fun experience. And yeah, like I don't know if I was a recruit, if I went and if I was considering where I want to go, but like, do I want to go to a staff that pouts and has a little tantrum when they don't get what they want? No, because I mean, like you're trying to go to a program that has a backbone and has
Oh yeah.
resilience and like has that team mentality. And I mean, if you're just if you're a part of a program that's the leader, if you got Marcus Freeman up there basically saying like, oh, we think we got screwed, so we're just gonna down tools and leave, then yeah, I mean that I don't think that's sending the right message to anyone who wants to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, all it conveys is that they're just scared.
Oh yeah.
They're
Yeah,
afraid they were going to lose, and
Mhm.
then I mean, to be fair, that's how that reads. Because if you belonged in the playoff, and especially against another supposed playoff team that also has the same arguments that you have, that you don't have enough quality wins, uh, what more of a statement is to show up and play the bowl game and then dominate it, and be like, y'all made a mistake.
Mhm.
yeah,
And Notre
yeah.
Dame is sitting there going like, no, no, no. Obviously, we didn't belong because we don't want to get embarrassed on this lower field. We would rather get embarrassed on this field, and like it's a little disheartening because I know
Mhm.
there was games where Michigan got snubbed and they showed up and played. There were games where Florida State got snubbed and they showed up and played, and they showed that, hey, no, we belonged in that top tier and we got snubbed, and we're making this win a statement.
Oh yeah,
Um,
A per
absolutely.
Yeah,
Clemson
yeah.
did it at one point during the BCS era where they got snubbed, and in Virginia did this. West Virginia did the same thing where they got snubbed, and they went and they just did a drumming just to prove their point that, hey, I belonged with the big boys. Y'all are the ones that kept me out of that fight.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a perfect example of that is I think it was the first year of the playoff. I think it was 2014 TCU. I remember this because that was the year. Yeah, it was the first year of the 14 playoff. I could be getting my dates wrong, so fact check me if you want. But it was 2014 TCU. Them and Baylor were the two dogs in the Big 12, but they didn't have a championship game. And I think they were the fifth team. Yeah, like they were the first one out. Like both the Big 12 teams ended up getting excluded. And Baylor went to, I think it was the Peach Bowl, and beat the brakes off of Ole Miss. And they proved like, hey, you should have put us in. Like, and
Exactly.
like the fact that they showed up and put in that performance, and I'm still talking about it a decade later, shows that if you want to make your mark, you go play your game. Because I mean, are we going to be talking about Notre Dame quitting in 2 or 3 years? Probably not.
No.
Because
No, we're absolutely going to be talking about Notre Dame in the next 2 years because, like the thing. Well, I will be, because I'm going to be bringing this up every single time. If you embarrass your program the way that they've just embarrassed their program, they absolutely need to be held accountable for it. Especially the amount of advantages that program has gotten over the years. I mean, the number of times that they've ended up in either the national championship because of a small cheerleading group in the AP push them up to where then they show up to the national championship group or championship game, and then they just get completely embarrassed when there were other deserving teams that should have been playing for the national title at that time.
oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
No, we're constantly going to be bringing up the fact that they pouted and said, "Oh, you didn't include me in your little playoff. Well, screw you guys. I'm going home, and I'm not even going to play in your bowl games." I mean, what is that supposed to say? Do you know how many other schools, I mean, specifically ACC schools even, that Notre Dame has taken bowl positions from as part of the agreement, that were more deserving than Notre Dame for some of those games? But because they're Notre Dame, you got to let them in. I'm just kind of done with them, to be fair.
That's fair. I mean, like this whole handshake agreement of like, oh, if you're in the top 12, you're going to be in next year. It's like that's just so wrong. It's
And
like
yet, so
it
Notre
goes
Dame.
against. It is so Notre Dame, and I say this as someone who is partial to Notre Dame. It's just like it just totally goes against what the CFP was meant to do. Because like if you just have someone who, if you just have these backdoor agreements with any blue blood school, then Yeah, like if you just have people just like circumventing the committee, which the committee is bad enough as it is anyways, and then if it like it's opening the door to such a mess that I'm just like, just knock it off now while you still have control of the situation before you have schools just doing all these handshakes. It's so I
Well,
hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
the sad thing is, it's not even just like all blue bloods. It's only Notre Dame that gets the special treatment. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I
no.
mean, you could probably argue that Alabama being in
Oh,
now
yes.
is,
I
is
would.
a little
Oh,
bit of
yeah.
special treatment. But to
Oh,
be fair,
yeah.
if it was any other SEC team other than Alabama, they would still be in that spot.
Yeah, if
They
it,
had
if it
the
was
exact
Texas,
same
like
record.
swap out Texas or LSU, they'd be
Or
having
Vandy.
the same argument. Yeah,
Now,
or yeah,
granted,
even Vandy.
if it was Vandy, we'd all be celebrating, right?
Yes,
That's
that
the
is
other
true.
part that people are ignoring is that, like, hey, if this was Vandy, we'd all be like, this is awesome. Now, granted, then we'd be upset that they're playing OU right away, which I think is like some shenanigans. Because to be fair, I think they should have probably split it up so that the SEC teams aren't all playing each other.
I
Yeah,
agree,
it is kind of a
actually.
bummer that 2 of the 4 first round games are rematches. I'm like, ugh, that's kind of annoying, but I mean, it is what it is.
I mean, I would have rather have seen like OU versus JMU and then Oregon versus Alabama. I think those would have been more interesting matchups.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah,
it is
yeah, I
with the
got it.
matchups that we get. But you know,
Yeah,
It
totally
kind of
hammered out.
reminds me of how back in 2023, right before the playoffs got expanded, obviously it was a top 4 thing. Florida State got snubbed, but there was one thing that just got me so like question marking the whole selection. Why why Georgia wasn't more of a selection that year? I know that's gold coming from me, but the only loss we had that season was against Alabama in the SC championship by 3 points. Now I know it was a lot different then, and trust me, I keep that in mind. It just seems like all that all that good of a year, right? We had many good wins under our belt, and just by a 3-loss game, even though Alabama already had a loss too, and it was to an even worse team, by the way. I can't remember who, but I know it was worse. Um, they ended up, being put in, obviously, for the SEC championship. Georgia got left out and arguably could have been put over Texas. Now, I'm not trying to put like any bias in. It just was like Georgia was basically my point is Georgia was mad. Georgia was mad because they feel like, losing by 3 it's like, wow, just that one loss, it just ruined our whole playoff run. So they went into the bowl game against Florida State and ran the board up because they just wanted to get some practice in, for next season. And it paid off well because, they made the playoffs. Obviously, we were a first round exit. But they ended up still making the playoffs, which is, what I feel like a bowl game should be looked at. You should look at a bowl game as, hey, you're getting some practice in, you're getting some reps in for the next season. And like it still
you
is a
do get the extra
yeah,
practices, plus you get to play against other Power
yeah,
Five teams. You know,
makes it interesting.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's always an interesting matchup because I mean you don't get to play Florida State every year. Or, yeah, like Oregon when the bowl games when I was there, you didn't get to play TCU every year. We didn't get to play Kansas State every year, and so yeah, I mean those were non like both those years we had losses late in the season that derailed our chances to make the title game or make the playoff, but. I mean, there's still something to finishing the season out strong.
Yeah. So basically, what we got here is our bracket. So for our bracket, we have Indiana coming in at number 1, Ohio State coming in at number 2, Georgia coming in at number 3, and Texas Tech coming in at number 4. And they have their bye weeks, and they will play whoever wins out of the first round, being number 5 Oregon, number 6 Ole Miss, number 7 Texas A&M, number 8 Oklahoma, number 9 Alabama, number 10 Miami, number 11 Tulane, and number 12 JMU. So basically, these teams endured hell this season to get here, and we got two teams who are in for a Cinderella run, and the four teams, looking at the playoff bracket initially, you're like, these teams looking like, they're probably going to run the table. But there's a lot of people who think otherwise. And there are people who think, there's just going to be some craziness in this bracket. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with Red. How and what do you make of this bracket? We will start with Alabama and Oklahoma.
Well, I'll give you my prediction. So, Alabama versus Oklahoma, I think this is going into Oklahoma's favor. I think it's going to be closer than what you think. But since they've already got the dub, and they got the dub originally in Tuscaloosa, the fact that it's going to be at Oklahoma and it's going to be cold, it's going to be real cold. I think that it's going to favor the defense. And the one thing that Oklahoma is doing now better than probably anyone else in the country is defense. So I think the win is going to go to Oklahoma. As far as JMU versus Oregon, I have some opinions.
Don't break my heart now. I'm listening.
Sheeb is all ears now.
JMU's one loss is to my team.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Louisville is the one loss, and yes, that's Louisville, is the one loss that JMU has this year. They play Louisville very close for the first half. I think Oregon is going to have fits for the first half, and then they're just going to walk away. Same thing that we did.
Interesting.
But I think it's gonna. Okay. I think it's gonna be something that's gonna make Oregon fans a little nervous. It's gonna expose some things that's on Oregon. But 100%, I think that it's gonna end up being Oregon is moving on to the next round. Now, will they move past Texas Tech? I have opinions there as well, but that's for later.
I'm ready to fight about it.
Yeah, my interesting matchup, I think the most interesting matchup that we've got all of the first round is the Miami versus Texas A&M. Because if Texas A&M shows up properly, as we know that we can play, I think they should have no problem dealing with Miami. However, they are coming off of a very psychological loss to Texas that I think is going to cause them problems. And I think that as a result of that, I think Miami squeaks past them.
Totally understandable, but
yeah.
Your team did in fact beat Miami. So I that does factor in a lot to the strength in this matchup.
I mean, yes, but also it's the Jeff Brom. He's like the inverse version of Penn State's old coach,
James Franklin.
James Franklin.
James Franklin. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you give Jeff Brom a bye week to prepare for a top 5 team, and there's a better than I think now 75% chance that he's going to win that game. Doesn't matter what team he shows up with.
6-0 against like top 5 teams. It's some absurd stat like that. It's wild.
It's like 4-2 top 10 if he's had a bye week, I think, in front of it. Like it's something ridiculous. Now and then of course, within 2 weeks after that, he's going to give up to probably the worst team in the conference.
Yeah.
But hey, at least we beat the big dogs.
It's a Jeff Brom experience.
Yeah. Now, the last matchup in the first round, if we're staying in the first round, Tulane versus Ole Miss. This is a rematch. However, both coaches have been poached. One coach is staying, but then you have to question, like, do the players feel abandoned because their coach is moving on to bigger and better things? Maybe they're motivated to play like one more time for the Gipper, that kind of deal. The Ole Miss team, they don't have Kiffin, but they've got everyone else. And with their talent pool, is that enough just to completely drub Tulane? And unfortunately, I do think that is what's going to happen. I think Old Miss is pulling this through to meet up with Georgia. Now, yeah, all right. So now we're into position number 2. So now we're gonna go Oklahoma versus Indiana. I mean, this one, Eddie has got Indiana playing fundamental football really well, and I think
Mhm.
this is a very good matchup. Like it's coming down to the wire again. Like I think this is another very good football coach versus another very good football coach. I think Sigonegi just manages to squeak something out.
Really?
I think they've got a little bit of magic on their side at this point. It's just enough to tip the scales. I do think that Indiana is taking the W against Oklahoma. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
that this is going to be a historical move for them. It's going to be a historical season for them. It already has been, but like I think it's going to continue. I think there's some magic there. Now we get into the next one, which is Texas Tech versus Oregon, which I think Texas Tech has enough weapons. I think they have enough interesting things to expose a lot of deficiencies that are in Oregon that we have seen against Oregon when Oregon was playing some of the bigger dogs in the Big Ten, which is the reason why they don't have the bye. I think that this is my big upset. I think that Texas Tech moves on past for at least one round. They make it past Oregon, and I'm sorry for your Ducks.
See, I'm mostly on the same page with. I'm not spoiling my predictions, but I think that Texas Tech is really being slept on just for the virtue of the fact that they've been in the Big 12, and the Big 12 is not a good conference this year. So I don't disagree with you.
It's not
Yeah.
perceived as a good conference. Let's use
Yeah.
that language specifically.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, for sure. Like, I think that people perceive the Big 12 as a step below, and so people are not a lot of people are talking about Texas Tech right now, and I do think they're one of the 5 or 6 teams that could win a national title, and I think that they can go to toe to toe
Absolutely.
with anyone in this bracket. So, I mean, you wound me greatly by picking Oregon to lose, but I don't think it is far-fetched by any reason. I think that this was going to be, I'll spoil my prediction, I think this is going to be the best game of the second round by far. I think this one's going to be an
Oh, yeah.
absolute barn burner. I'm so excited to watch it, if it happens, of course.
Yeah. I think it's absolutely going to be a shootout. And the other part too is like you watch the way the Texas Tech just completely dismantled BYU, right? And BYU was literally playing for a chance to be on this wall, right? So they had everything in the world to play for, and yet, despite their advantages, because if you don't know this, BYU, most of their players all get they're usually a year older, just because of requirements that are involved with playing at BYU before you go there, because they usually go on mission in between, and so usually they're a bit more brutish, and so they play a bit more old school football where the linemen are usually they're bigger because they're usually a year older. There's a lot of that, and so to see a team come in and push around a BYU means like, man, they're going to be tough for even like the big dog top conferences, and that's why I think the Texas Tech is going to take it on. Now I have to go like Miami versus Ohio State. I'm sorry, Miami. You've got a lot of holes. Louisville exposed you bad. Early intercept machine is going to be on overdrive.
Yeah,
I'm predicting at least 4 intercepts, and then one of them is called back by the ref in this game. Thrown by Miami's quarterback. And this is going to go in Ohio State's favor. They are moving on. I don't really think it'll be that much of a contest. Unfortunately,
I don't trust Carson Beck at all. Carson Beck he's got that anti-clutch gene where just the moment I was watching the Louisville game, and I texted my buddy. 'Cause we watched a lot of Miami games because we hate watch Mario Cristobal for what he did at Oregon, and
it's fair.
yeah, I think they were driving down for their what would have been like the game like. If I think if they scored a touchdown, they would have won. If I remember how that game ended, because they had the ball with like a minute left in the fourth quarter, and I texted
Intercept
him.
machine popped up. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I texted him. I was like,
Twice.
"This feels absolutely right for a Carson Beck backbreaking
Yep.
interception." And maybe 30 seconds later, he threw a pick to end the game. And yeah,
As
I don't trust him in big spots at all.
absolutely.
You, yeah.
Yep,
You,
as a
an
Georgia
Ugga,
fan, I can
yeah.
absolutely vouch for that one. Now, I'm not saying he was a bad quarterback. I do think he's got some spunk in his play. It's just that he comes up with the interceptions in bad times. He did it against Bama when he was with Georgia last season, and it costed us the game. It was
Yeah,
bad.
The thing is that the Louisville game against Miami, though, like it wasn't even close except for they had that poor fumble at the end. That's the only thing
Yeah.
that really kept Miami in the game. And if you watch that game, I think that Louisville was credited with it was either 3 or 4 interceptions, but there was at least 2. They were called, 2 that were called back because of official funny business.
Yeah.
And that he literally threw it to a guy on our team twice. You know, and that's the part that he's just not going to be able to get past. And Ohio State's just too good of a football team.
Oh yeah.
To allow that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if A&M somehow beat Miami, I think that would have been a closer game. But that's not where we're at.
All right.
Now, Ole Miss versus Georgia. I mean, there's Georgia. Ole Miss doesn't have their coach. They're not really there on the talent level. This is Georgia all day long. I'm sorry, because I really think that matchup's going to be Ohio State versus Georgia, and it's going to come down between those two teams on who they want the most in order to go to the championship game. And out of those two, because like I'm sorry, I've already said everything I can about Ole Miss, is between a Ryan Day coached Ohio State and a Kirby Smart Georgia, unless the new shoplifting allegations prove to be a problem with Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
Are there more crimes? Did I miss more crimes out of Athens?
Yes, they did today. They just did a whole bunch of new crimes. They were stealing like air freshener and like
I saw
Febreze. Like you look at the list, and you're going like, who on the offensive line is having a girl over for the first time? Because what are we doing here?
Oh my gosh. Continue.
If those distractions don't impede what they're doing, I think Georgia's got the one up on Ohio State. So I think we're going to see Georgia in the finals. Now if we go back to the other side, so I've got Texas Tech going over Oregon and versus IU. And I've said it once before. I think IU is on something magical. I think it's going to be a fun game. I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout. It's going to be good fundamental football. We're going to see some real pretty stuff on the field. But I think IU is going to make it in there. And then like my final two is Georgia versus IU. And I think that IU, just because I think they're a better disciplined team because they're not committing shoplifting crimes or speeding tickets. I think this is going to be like and I want this more than anything because it's from out of left field. Because if you would have asked anyone 3 years ago that when a playoff scenario shows up, what is the one big team that will not be competing for a national title? The first team out of anyone's mouth is going to be IU. And the fact that they look like they're primed for a national title run this year is just something amazing. It's something magical. And I think they've just got what it takes to get across that hump.
I can't even be upset with your pick. about having them over Georgia. Honestly, I mean, like IU. Honestly, if we were to somehow meet in the national championship, uh, obviously I would be bummed out about the loss, right? As a Georgia fan, but if there's any team that I would feel comfortable with taking that victory over us, it would at least be IU.
Well, the question
Mhm.
is which one's got a better law program? Who can get the Georgia players out of the speeding
Oh
ticket?
my gosh, I'm never hearing the end of this, am I?
Yeah, it's a good thing Georgia has just been committing crimes constantly because the newest allegations are not to be distracted on. They're seasoned on this. They know what's going on.
The MVP
They
of the
know how to
playoffs is
handle
the
this.
prison in Athens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the number 13th ranked team. All right, I'm gonna
All
let
right,
you go ahead
Sheeb.
and do your pick.
All right, my turn. So we'll start with the 8-9 matchup. I believe my title on this when I was writing out my script is I said, "What a horrible game to have eyes," because this game is going to be gross. Neither team can move the ball. Um, Ever since Oklahoma played Alabama, Alabama has fallen off of a cliff offensively. They've never been able to run the ball, but now they just can't move the ball, period. Ty Simpson, I think the rumors are he's been injured. I'd believe it with how he's been playing because he has not looked good in the latter half of the season. And the same can be said about Oklahoma. I mean, they started off on fire. They looked really good. Then Mateer went down. He came back definitely too early because he hasn't looked the same. And neither team can move the ball. But the rematch is in Norman. Oklahoma already won in Tuscaloosa. It's going to be cold. And there's something about this Kalen DeBoer Alabama team where I feel like they get chalked mentally really easily.
Yeah.
And I think that if Oklahoma, I mean, Oklahoma, their game plan is we're going to play lights out defense. They probably have the best defense, one of the best defenses in the country. We're going to play lights out defense, and we're just going to wait for you to make a mistake. And they're going to wait for Alabama to give them a short field. They're going to wait for Alabama to throw an interception and turn it over. And then if they can, and then they say, okay, once we get that short field, then we're going to go score a touchdown, or we just need to get one first down, then we get a field goal. They play like a really, and so yeah, like I think that Oklahoma has the recipe to frustrate Alabama to death, and I think that if they go up 2 scores, this game is going to be over. I don't. Something Alabama's really been sputtering down the end. I think they're going to be beaten down from getting trashed by Georgia. So I will take the Sooners in a very ugly game that just is gonna. It's gonna be like 17-10, and it's gonna feel like it takes 5 hours to watch. Moving on to JMU versus Oregon. Um, I am an Oregon fan, obviously, and this game scares me more than it should. I mean, obviously, Oregon's favored by, I think, more than 3 touchdowns. I think the line is 21.5. JMU is coming into this game with nothing to lose. They are going to throw the kitchen sink at Oregon, and they're a talented team. I mean, they only had one loss on the year, but I think that as long as Oregon doesn't completely lose their heads in a way that we have not seen in the Dan Lanning era, even if they have to weather a few punches from JMU, even if they're down in the first quarter, I think that they're just going to out talent their way to a victory here. I mean, it's a shame that that we didn't get a bigger matchup, but also it's nice that the G5 does get included. I would like that the first home playoff game in Autzen be against a marquee team like Alabama or Oklahoma or any of the other at-larges, but we play the cards we're dealt. So I think Oregon will cruise easily. Weather might be a factor, but I think Oregon, regardless of conditions, Oregon's going to roll.
Yeah.
We'll go to the next G5 game. We'll go to Tulane Ole Miss. Yeah, I mean, Red touched on it earlier. This is the battle of teams that have both lost their coaches. At least John Summerall stayed for Tulane, but we saw this game earlier in the year. I think Ole Miss won by 40. It's even though Ole Miss doesn't have Kiffin, I don't think there's a lot to say about this game. I mean, Ole Miss will be able to out talent their way to beating Tulane just because I mean they've just got better athletes across the board. There's not a lot to say about this game. I think that Ole Miss will handle this game comfortably and move on to go face Georgia. Now, we get to the most marquee game, the one that I'm really excited about in the first round, which is Miami going to
Yeah.
Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I am really sad that this game is like a noon local kickoff because I feel like Kyle Field at night with Miami there would have been such a cool atmosphere.
Oh,
And I'm really sad
absolutely.
that we're going to miss that. Yeah, I'm really sad that we're missing out on that, but I mean, the Aggies are going to show out anyways for a home playoff game, so the atmosphere is still going to be electric. My X factors in this game. I know that we mentioned that Texas A&M is coming off of a really heartbreaking loss, and they've still been stewing on that loss to Texas for like 3 weeks now, and
Yeah.
that's still going to be in the back of their mind. My X factors in this game. Well, I think Mike Elko is a really great coach, and I think he'll have them fired up. I think they'll have learned from that loss, and I mean they looked good prior to that. I don't think they're going to take a big step back. The big factors in this game are Mario Cristobal and Carson Beck. I talked about it a little in Red's prediction. I do not trust either of them with any amount of money or pressure on the line. I think that Carson Beck is so anti-clutch, and he like we said, he's the interception machine. I think if he is forced into a position where he has to win the game, Miami is in a world of trouble. And from my experience as an Oregon fan, Mario Cristobal in big games is like watching a saw trap play out in slow motion. It's horrible. The amount of times I had to watch Oregon go into a big game knowing we were about to get outcoached into oblivion was maddening. And I don't trust him at all. Like we watched it like we like in the famous Miami Georgia Tech game where he didn't need the ball out and then they lost. And the SMU game this year where just a myriad of coaching decisions cost them that game. I don't trust Mario Cristobal at all. I think he's a fantastic recruiter. He's arguably one of the worst coaches at in-game adjustments. So that all being said, Texas A&M, I think, wins this game because I think the Hurricanes will fold under any amount of spotlight.
I got you.
Yeah,
I
I
got
think
you.
that's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Big time, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so second round now. We have IU versus Oklahoma. I think that whoever wins this game is basically a sacrificial lamb for Indiana. I have seen Indiana in person. That team is as good as they are built. What Signetti has done to that team is wild in terms of like taking a bottom feeder to the undefeated number one seed in 2 years is just unheard of. And he is cementing himself as one of the best coaches in the country, like at such a rapid pace. Fernando Mendoza, he is a complete goober. He's like watching him, like I was at the Oregon Indiana game and like watching him run around, he's like just gangling his way down the field and he looks like he's just always just like out of control, like he's gonna like trip and fall down, but he's just doing all these things at such an elite level. I mean, he's a Heisman winner. He is and it's I cannot sing this Indiana team's praises enough. I suppose that kind of spoils my prediction, but I like whoever wins between Oklahoma and Alabama. I think that they're going to be in for a long afternoon because Indiana is great on both sides of the ball. They're going to dominate whichever of those teams with they've got an elite defense. So I'll take Indiana. They would cover whatever point spread is on that game.
Yeah, Indiana quarterback definitely reminds me of
Oh yeah.
like Eli Manning. You know, like how he could just he could goober his way to beating like the greatest
Oh yeah,
team of all time. Like he just shows up and he's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but like somehow I beat the Patriots with Tom Brady.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just Tom Brady's kryptonite. Yeah, exactly. That's a great comparison.
Honestly, such a good man to win Heisman. Honestly, because I was Pavia coming in second. I was hoping Pavia just would. I was like, Pavia's a good quarterback, but he can get a little too cocky. And but Fernando Mendoza, good individual, very good at ball. I mean, the fact that he's quarterbacking really well, turn around Indiana's season or the Indiana football program a lot. It's phenomenal seeing what he's done at
Yeah.
quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. All right. So we got A&M versus Ohio State. Ohio State, I think that they will be stewing on their loss to Indiana. We saw how the late loss to Michigan last year kind of focused them up, and Ryan Day is going to use that as fuel to lock in for the stretch run. I don't think they're gonna. I don't have any worries about them spiraling out like other teams after a late loss, and so I think that this, like, we've seen Ohio State just control games and establish their pace of play all year, and I don't think this will be any different. I think that that defense is elite. They have NFL players all up and down that front seven, and Caleb Downs is a absolute game wrecker. And I don't see a path for Texas A&M to beat Ohio State. I think that they're too good at too many levels, and so give me the Buckeyes. And
See, I'm very interested on that one because my thing is that I think that A&M is broken right now, and that's why I don't think they could get past Miami. If they could somehow get past Miami, I don't see anything stopping them until they hit Georgia.
Okay.
I think that A&M versus Ohio State is a very good matchup. In A&M's favor even. I think it's more interesting.
Absolutely.
That's just me. Because I mean we've seen Ohio State struggle. I mean they struggled against IU.
Yeah.
You know we've seen other big teams. It, just figure out like the calculus that needs to be there, and it looks like if you get Elko's A&M firing on all cylinders, I think that they put up a really good fight against Ohio State. If not, like taking them to overtime and squeaking out a win. But I think they're just too broken to get past Miami, and that's why I went with mine.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a blueprint to beat Ohio State because I mean I think Texas A&M does have the horses to do it. It's just
Yes.
it's just like you have to play. They're gonna have to play a perfect game, and we're gonna have to. We can't.
Absolutely.
You can't have bad Marcel Reed come out like we saw like the one Texas A&M game I've watched this year. I watched them play South Carolina. And I saw one half of bad Marcel Reed where he threw like 5 interceptions, and then he was fantastic in the second half on the comeback. Yeah. So if they have a full game of good Marcel Reed, there's absolutely a blueprint to beat Ohio State. Like I think that, out of all of these, out of the 3 matchups, like IU, Ohio State, and Georgia, I'm the least confident about Ohio State. I think that there is. I think that that 7-10 matchup, both teams do have the athletes to beat them, and so it would be I would not be shocked if either of those teams beat Ohio State. All right. So now, all right. So now, we got Georgia versus Ole Miss. I think this one is way more straightforward than the Ohio State game, because while Ole Miss might have the talent to just out-talent and out-athlete Tulane, you're not going to do that to Kirby Smart, who's had a month to prepare. I like that Georgia team. They are scarier. Georgia. I'm sorry, we got some bias over here. I think that Georgia is scarier than any team in the bracket right now. I think that Georgia, they're peaking at the right time. They've looked insanely good for the last half of the season, and I don't see a path for Ole Miss to win this. I mean, they're going to be able to out athlete Tulane. They will not be able to do it to Georgia. So I think Georgia wins this one relatively easily. And now the best game of the second round, Texas Tech versus Oregon. I think this game is going to be so good. I am so excited for it, provided Oregon gets there. And I think that these are two teams that are the most slept on. I think that no one is like, I haven't heard a lot of conversation. I think everyone's talking about the big, like the two Big Ten championship participants and Georgia as like the front runners, and rightfully
Yeah,
so. But I think that both of these teams could go toe to toe with any of those three.
absolutely.
Like
I
those are the
agree.
five teams that, yeah, definitely. And I think the key here is that we saw it last year with all of the teams that had that month-long layoff, all the teams that had the first round bye, especially Oregon. Oregon was the most obvious example, because I think all four teams with first round byes lost last year, and Oregon got boat raced. We were asleep in the first half of that Ohio State game. That was the worst I've seen Oregon play under Dan Lanning. And I think that there's something to be spoken for, that the buys are a real poison pill, because football is all about rhythm. And when you have to take a month off, it really messes with a team's like their focus, their routine, because they've been in this routine of a game every week or a week in between games for months now. And all of a sudden you take this time off, it's going to take some time to wake up. And so I think that Oregon, with a sort of warm up game against James Madison, will have the advantage, and they can come out hot and really take it and really take this game, make Texas Tech chase them. Because while Texas Tech's defense is really good, their offense it's been shown to be mortal. It's not a championship caliber winning offense where I think that if they were tasked with going up and putting 30-40 points on the board, that I think that they would be able to do it. And I think that Oregon, if they can get out early, if you can get Dante Moore focused in rhythm, if he's not knocked off a spot like he was in the Indiana game, then I think that Oregon has the ability to take this game. So I will take Oregon in a absolute barn burner of a game that's going to be absolute cinema, and I will take Oregon to go face off against Indiana in the semifinals.
Big rematch.
Yeah. All right, so we'll keep rolling. So we got Ohio State versus Georgia, and then Indiana versus Oregon. Starting with Ohio State versus Georgia, I think that Ohio State really hasn't been tested yet by a team like Georgia, and I think that if Ohio State has won games just by out talenting their opponents, I I don't think they're obviously not going to be able to do that against Georgia. So I think that Georgia can lean on them, and they can make Ohio State have to chase them and not play a super slow game like the Buckeyes have been doing all year. I think that Georgia can control the tempo of the game and can really force Julian Sain out of his comfort zone. They're going to be able to get after him like Indiana did. So I think that
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean that was the key to the Big Ten game, was Indiana was just knocking him off his spot the whole game, and no one has gotten after him like that the entire season. So I think that Georgia will win this
And that
game.
Georgia defense, like, I mean, that is, if there's somebody who's going to get after you, I think by the third sack, like, he's done.
Yeah. I think he'll be rattled. And so give me Georgia to book one spot in the national title game, and we'll go over to Indiana versus Oregon, the rematch game. This is one I had to give a lot of thought on, because my head says Indiana, because they have not put a foot wrong all year. They've won games in many different ways, but my heart says Oregon. I think that Oregon, I think that they will learn. They've learned a lot from their first loss, from the loss against Indiana, and I think that I trust Dan. I still think that the two coordinators, even though they're going to go take their head coaching spots elsewhere, I think they're still locked in on this run as one last hurrah together to try to get Oregon their elusive national title. And rematch games are so hard they're so hard for the first team to repeat what they did. I mean, we look at Oregon and Ohio State last year. So I think that Oregon, they'll have learned enough to be able to disrupt what Indiana wants to do on offense. They'll be able to patch over some of the mistakes that they made on offense on their own, and kind of keep Dante Moore clean enough to win this game. So I will take Oregon to face Georgia in the national title.
You know, I can actually see I can actually see why you did that. The Oregon and Indiana game, it was good. We saw a shootout actually. Indiana did end up taking the win, but it was close. So, like you said, rematch games are hard to repeat. So I can absolutely see why Oregon could take that game. Um, I see why you can make that decision.
Hmm.
All
Yeah,
right.
definitely. Like I think the national narrative was always was a lot of, oh, Indiana dominated Oregon. That game was tied in the fourth quarter. And it was, I mean, those teams were very neck and neck. So I think that there's a lot, those two teams are a lot closer than people think. And yeah, so we got the 5 seed versus the 3 seed. We got Oregon versus Georgia, the Dan Lanning Kirby Smart rematch, Kirby versus Protege. And I just think this it's definitely a biased call, but I think that Oregon has the horses to do what they want, as provided they get healthy. If they're able to get their top 3 pass catchers back, they've been missing DeCorian Moore, Evan Stewart might be back for the first time all year. Gary Bryant's been out. If Oregon's able to get healthy and have their full complement on offense, that they can put up points on anyone. And I think that they could control the tempo of that game. I think that they've got enough on defense to put Gunnar Stockton off his game. I think Oregon could do it. It's definitely a biased pick, but I think they got the horses to go toe to toe with anyone. So I'm putting my foot down. Oregon will be listed in the national title in Hard Rock come January.
I mean, I mean, you know me. Obviously, I'm a Georgia fan. I like you'll hear my brackets here in a bit. But I can see why. I honestly, if we went toe to toe with Oregon, seeing how Dan Lanning was was coaching under Kirby Smart, and this is a veteran head coach versus a rookie head coach. I could see. I mean, I could see just he's just wanting just to just take that surprising win. You know.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah,
right.
definitely.
So
I
you
mean,
guys.
my argument to that is like, look how many times it took Smart to finally beat Saban.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh yeah.
because I think there's going to be that mental barrier. Because like, if I'm going Oregon versus Smart, I think Smart's got at least he's the heavier favorite if I'm calling that one. But I get what you're saying too. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Kirby is definitely. I'd say he's the undisputed best coach in college football right now.
it's
I
left.
think that he's. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, and it's gonna take. You have to be perfect to beat a Kirby Smart-led Georgia team. But I think that Dan's good enough to do it, and I think he's learned a lot. He's learned from. He's definitely learning as he goes. Like it's a whole different conversation. It was like watching him year one versus now, and kind of the way that he approaches the game. But he's growing as a coach, and I think that he's just getting better and better every year.
Absolutely. So y'all ready to hear my
Let it rip.
bracket prediction? All right.
Maybe.
All right, all right. Let's get to it. So we have Alabama at Oklahoma for the first round matchup. All right, so we're talking about an Alabama team that has already gotten beat by Oklahoma in the season already. You know, matchups again, rematches are hard to win again. And we've established that. But Alabama has been playing some sloppy ball, and we know this. We've seen it in the SEC championship. But you could make the argument that this is just, we didn't see playoff Bama, because playoff Bama is different. We've seen that in many instances where Bama does not look good going into the playoffs, and then they'll just all of a sudden, oh, we're going to play good. That's just how it's been. They just want to just do better in the playoffs. I mean, they're that team that could really care less about the SEC championship and go for the big one, you know? And but that's the thing though. This year there's just not, or at least now in Alabama football, there's not a whole lot of spunk whatsoever in that Alabama team right now. And I stand firm on that because their their offense has been playing a little bit more sloppy. Ty Simpson's been playing a little sloppy. Obviously, hearing about how he's now got an injury, and I don't. Jam Miller probably will be back by then, but if he's not, oh, that's a really bad crucial situation for Alabama right there. I'm just gonna go ahead and put that. But if he is back, which maybe he will be, I think he is. I don't know. Quote me if I'm wrong, but honestly, I don't see Alabama coming in and winning the rematch, especially in Norman. So I got Oklahoma winning that matchup. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something to say. Like they've lost that fear factor that they have under Saban,
hmm
and like who knows if they're gonna get it back.
oh yeah, absolutely. I look. I'm just glad we finally put belt to ass on that team. Because we just been getting spanked by, not really spanked, but just getting owned by Alabama every year. It's just tiring, but that's kind of like the whole, you know, head coach, coaching under this coach, and you go head coach for another team. It's just that whole mental battle. So I mean, like, not usually using that as an excuse or anything. It's just Bama has always played tough against Georgia. But moving on, we got JMU at Oregon. So uh don't worry about me predicting an upset here. I'm just
Okay,
gonna go
I'm
ahead and say
watching
that. It will be close in the first half. I do feel that. But then Oregon's gonna go to halftime and there's just gonna be this halftime speech, it's like I believe, that there will be, it's like, hey, we need to go out and play and get ourselves together. We'll get warmed up, at halftime, and we'll go out there, and I think they'll win maybe by 10 or 14 points. That's me. JMU had an amazing season, and I could see them playing Oregon maybe even into overtime. That's my take on this. I could see it happening. I could, because JMU, they grew on me. They grew on me this entire season. I know that's a take. I know that's a take and a half, but I don't know. I I just have that feeling that JMU is going to want it, and
Oh,
Oregon's going to have to pry that want from their hands, and you know, uh, but I do feel like Oregon will win that. My top thought is that they'll win by 10 to 14 points, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see an overtime matchup. Actually, that's just me. I don't know. I have that feeling, but I have a little bit of a feeling about that one.
if Oregon went to overtime with JMU, I think I would need someone to check on me with how stressed I would be. My heart might actually explode if that happens.
I mean, I already gave mine because, like, again, they gave Louisville fits in the first half because I think going into the locker room at halftime, I think JMU is up, but then after
Yeah.
that we figured out their game plan and were able to deal with it. I have a feeling that it'll be very similar. I mean, if your coach is as good as you say he is, that should be the outcome. Now, if
Mhm.
JMU hangs out close to you in the third and fourth quarter, I got some bad news about your coach.
No.
Oh me. Let's see. Next we have the U, Miami, versus the Aggies. So I hear a lot about this battered Aggie syndrome and all this,
It's
and
real.
and I believe it's real too. But we're talking about Texas A&M doesn't have good luck against Texas in that matchup. Everybody is relying on that matchup, and I see why. But we're talking about Texas A&M has always done this with Texas. It's just, I mean, they'll win their matchups against Texas, but they're just kind of like Alabama and Georgia. Georgia's expected to win, but then Alabama comes in just smack. You know, uh, it's just that whole situation. I think it kind of messed with Texas A&M's mentality a little bit. Do I think that loss will affect them in this playoff? Absolutely not. I think with their time that they had off and to, recoup from that, I think Marcel Reed is primed for the playoffs actually. And I think that he'll be even better than what he was in, the end of the regular season. So, and on the other side of the field, we have Carson Beck in Miami. This might be a whole bias thing with me going against Carson Beck, but he does throw a lot of interceptions. That's a stat, and I can use that
He does. I mean,
it's just like it's just what it is.
Defense is usually pretty good, so like,
Yeah.
If somebody were to be like, "Hey, you have to bet money on an interception betting line," I would bet that Carson Beck throws over at least 2 interceptions.
the Beck
2 interceptions or more. I definitely he's just interception prone. He can throw the ball, he can complete the ball, he can do all that, but the only thing he can't do is stop it from going to the other team. I've witnessed this as a Georgia fan. He does this in crucial situations. Almost cost us a game against Florida last year. And this is what I told Miami fans all season. Carson Beck just does this. It's a Carson Beck thing to give up a lot of interceptions, but many credit where it's due. You can recoup from an interception, right? And if your defense plays well, and I believe so, but we're talking about giving up an interception, if that happens, to a Texas A&M offense with Marcel Reed leading. That's deadly. That's deadly. So, honestly, my conclusion, I have Texas A&M taking this one because I don't know. There's just too many offensive problems along with their good side of the offense. They have the holes in their offense that which it being Carson Beck and his interception problem. That's what I believe. I believe the Aggies take it at Kyle Field.
Yeah. I mean, that's largely what I think. So that makes sense.
Now we have Tulane at Ole Miss. We've seen this matchup at the beginning of the season. It was either beginning or middle of the season. It was a blowout. Ole Miss blew out Tulane. But we're talking about Ole Miss now not having Lane Kiffin, which is a big deal, by the way. I'm gonna go ahead and put that there because that's the not necessarily the heart of the team, since everybody plays their own part, but the head coach is very important, and losing that is crucial. And Tulane is keeping their head coach, or obviously not keeping him. He's going to be leaving. But he's going to be coaching through the playoffs. So if you ask me about this matchup, will it be better than the first one? It will be. But do I think they come out with the win? No. It'll be closer. Maybe by like 10 points or so. I would absolutely love to see Tulane win, by the way. I'm just going ahead and imply that. I would love to see that. But do I see it happening? No. Because this Ole Miss team still has Trinidad Chambliss at quarterback, who has been a dog and gave us crap when we played them in this this season. He's a good dual threat quarterback, and honestly, I just don't foresee Tulane ending up with the victory in this one as well. Although, as much as I would like to see it, so we can play a new team other than Ole Miss, I would absolutely say that Ole Miss comes out on top of this one.
Campbell's is a dog.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the running is it Kyron Lacey? No. Yeah.
Keywan Lacey.
Keywan Lacey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know his last name is Lacey. That's it's been a bit since our matchup, so I'm a little silly right now. But he's also really good at the running back position. He also ran all over Georgia's defense when our defense wasn't primed as much. That's also a factor of Ole Miss. So I wouldn't totally count out Ole Miss, which is I'm just gonna I'll get to it in a little bit. So now we have Oklahoma and Indiana. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say Indiana is just really good. I mean, have you seen them play? I mean, come on, Fernando Mendoza at quarterback. With Oklahoma, I mean, solid team. They took out Alabama, obviously, which isn't necessarily light work. But Oklahoma still has their struggles on offense, and the Indiana offense is going to find a way to score on Oklahoma's defense, I feel like. And Oklahoma won't really know how to retaliate. And I feel like Indiana pulls away at least by a touchdown. So give me Indiana for that matchup, because all around Indiana is a complete team for the playoffs. We all know this. On paper, Indiana is looking like the team to take it all. So yeah, Indiana in that matchup against Oklahoma. Then we have Texas Tech versus Oregon. All right, Sheeb, hold on to the seat.
I'm leaning forward respectfully.
So we have a Texas Tech team versus Oregon here. My whole thought about Texas Tech this season, they're solid. Their defense is amazing, actually. I'd say that. Their defense is really amazing. Like, led by the linebacker they have. What's his face? I can't think right now.
Jake Rodriguez.
Yes. Sorry, I had a brain fart. Led by a defense led by him. Running contender for Heisman, and as a defensive player, that's not easy. But overall, Texas Tech has a really good defense, and they showed that against BYU both times by absolutely murdering them. But as we look into Texas Tech's schedule, I don't know if I really see a whole lot of strength compared to what Oregon has been through this season. And I know that this is the whole, Texas Tech is a sleeper team, and I do believe that Texas Tech could be, a sleeper team and surprise a lot of people, including me. But I just don't see Texas Tech going toe-to-toe with Oregon, honestly. I think it'll be close, obviously, but I just haven't been fully stoked by their wins. And plus, not to mention, I know, like, looking at losses, now especially, but a loss against Arizona State will stick with you, especially this season. But I mean, they have made progress since then, obviously. But I think Oregon and Dan Lanning have this one actually. Yeah, I see you over
I
there.
agree.
I see you over
Yeah.
there. That's my
Speaking the truth over there.
that's one of my surprising matchups actually. I felt like that one was actually a hot take, and actually there was a lot of what a lot of teams chose this. Not teams, people chose this. My bad. A lot of people chose this in their brackets on ESPN and all this stuff. I'm not going by off of what
Well,
I'm not going by off of what they said, but I really
is Stein coaching Oregon? Like
Yeah,
Stein's not.
yeah, he's
is
still
he?
there. Yeah,
'Cause
he's doing the playoff.
Okay.
Yeah, Stein and Tosh are both sticking around for the playoff run.
So what's it like having a traitor as an OC?
I could do a 2-hour long podcast on the
Oh
Will Stein
gosh.
experience on how much I love and hate that man. I wish him well. I hope he's focused for the run. I trust that he is, but I'm also nervous about it.
Well, imagine if he was one of your quarterbacks, and now he's going to go coach your rival.
Oh, is he a Louisville quarterback?
Yeah.
Oh. Oh dear. Oh no. No, I'm nervous.
Oh me. Oh me.
See, like there was this like Louisville in football. That doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, I got lots of takes on this. They're all relatively relevant too.
Marcel Reed and the Aggies versus Julian Sayin and the Buckeyes. If you ask me, this will be a really good game. I do stand on that. It'll be close. It'll be 4 quarters, and it all will go down to who the more complete team is. And if you ask me who that is, I do think it is Ohio State in that matchup. Because I mean, seeing how
I
they
have to agree.
seeing how they played.
You almost had me. I thought you were gonna say Texas A&M.
Nah. As much as it would be pretty cool to see them kind of upset Ohio State, I don't see it happening. Because Ohio State is complete. Julian Sayin at quarterback is really great, and Jeremiah Smith, balling out. Ohio State also having a good defense. This team is too well rounded. Just don't let it be a field goal situation, Ohio State, or you will lose.
Yes.
Bring up both the 2023 college football Peach Bowl and the Big Ten championship that recently just happened. Yeah. Don't let it be a field goal situation or Ohio State will lose. That's the only part they're not complete in. But if you're not in a field goal situation, you're fine. But yeah, give me Ohio State and Julian Sayin for that matchup. Now we have Georgia versus Ole Miss. Obviously, this is me talking about Georgia, so it might not mean a whole lot to people. But obviously, a lot of people have agreed with me. I've spoken my opinions about it. I've spoken the facts, actually, with stats and all that stuff. And, with, previous game played this season, obviously, there's facts to be had about it. But there's also opinions. But we have seen this at the middle of the season, and Georgia ended up winning. It was a close game. It was a fourth quarter game. But we're talking about a Ole Miss team that has not gotten much better. If anything, they went on to start struggling a little bit more in their ball games, a little bit, and they're losing Lane Kiffin. And we're talking about like an interim, an interim head coach versus Kirby Smart in the playoffs. And we've seen this defense versus Trinidad Chambliss, and it was in the end Georgia ended up getting the stop when it mattered. So,
Georgia's going to feast. I mean, they're just going to sit there
yeah,
and rah, 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 rah,
I
rah.
I believe with Georgia getting better throughout the season after that Ole Miss matchup, I believe that'll be even much of a widespread game. Give me Georgia for that matchup. Give me the dogs, baby. All right, so now we move to the semifinals. We have Indiana versus Oregon. Oh, we've seen this matchup already throughout this season, and like we said earlier, it was a close matchup. I like how Oregon was a team that could go toe to
It's
toe with
close,
Indiana.
close-ish. Keep in mind,
Close,
like
yeah,
Cincinnati
okay,
seems Cincinnati's
okay,
like signature win is winning in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's just kind of his thing,
yeah, yeah,
as we
yeah,
saw in the Big Ten championship game. So keep that in mind too.
yeah. Uh,
If there's a team you don't want close in the fourth quarter, it's Indiana.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
And that's the whole thing. We talk about rematches being hard, and I could see where Oregon could pull off an upset. And I really do think it'll be even more competitive. But we're also talking about a Indiana team that has developed a lot, even after beating Oregon the first time. And honestly, Sheep, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Sheep, but I got the Hoosiers winning that game because I've. I mean, he's so sad. I'm sorry, but I don't know. I just feel like the Hoosiers with Fernando Mendoza, the season that they're having, they're wanting it a lot, and this team is, you know, first time ever, to appear as number. They were at one point, when they were number 2 in the AP poll. It was the first time in, uh, their football program history, and you know, uh, Fernando Mendoza winning Heisman was a huge thing for Indiana. Indiana definitely wants this national championship. Probably the most, actually. If I had to say it, if there's a team that I had to choose that wanted it the most right now, it would be Indiana. Um,
Yeah. hmm Yeah, I think that there's something to be said, and it's like as much as you hurt me by picking Indiana, I think it's a very smart pick because there's something you said about like the want and the desire. They have that team of destiny feel to them. Like they're not. They've got Mendoza. They've got the story. Everyone's talking about Sig and this miraculous turnaround. So the stars are aligning for them.
Absolutely, and it's just they're all around good team, like all around the ball. They do well. They execute well. They do what they need. They do what needs to get done, and they win their games. And they have all season. They're the only undefeated team coming into the playoffs, and the only undefeated team in college. So they're looking absolutely just unbeatable, right? Well, we're not. I wouldn't say unbeatable, but they are looking absolutely, just really good right now, and they're playing solid ball, and that's all I can really say about it. Uh, you know, it's just that even though Oregon went toe to toe to Indiana pretty well, uh, we're talking about an Indiana team that just developed way too much, and it'll just be too much. Now we have the Buckeyes versus Georgia. You know, we've seen a matchup where Ohio State has come in to be the favored team against Georgia before. And uh, Georgia came in and pulled off the upset. Upset the whole nation when CJ Stroud was with uh the Buckeyes. That disheartened a lot of Buckeyes fans, and it disheartened the team. They're out for revenge against Georgia. They're gonna want it. They're gonna want the blood of Georgia because of that game. Uh, This one will be really good. Now, as a Georgia fan, if this is the matchup that's stopping us from making the national championship, I'm going to be sweating bullets because if there's any team that could stop us in that side of the bracket, it would be Ohio State. Um, but I've seen this Georgia team really develop through the season, and watching them play every game, every snap, and all this, seeing the heart around the team and what Gunnar Stockton has achieved as a leader and in this Bulldogs team, he has really helped pick up this team. Obviously, he wasn't in the Heisman contender, and you know, um, kind of mid in the quarterback rankings out of all these teams, probably, or maybe a little up there, but not up there on the same tier as Mendoza or Julian saying. He's got heart. This kid will run the ball. He's not scared to take a hit. I know that's kind of wild for a quarterback and it could be scary, but I've seen this kid take absolute licks and get back up and go for it again, and he'll do it. That one game, actually last year in the SEC championship versus Texas, me and Red watched this game live. Gunnar Stockton got smoked, and he got right back up. Didn't even phase him. This kid has heart. He will not stop until that clock hits 0. I like how this kid plays, and I believe there's a lot of heart in this Georgia team. All around, they have really developed, and that defense is what it's looking like, what it's always looked like in the previous Georgia teams that won the national championship. I'm not saying obviously as they're as good as that because those were pretty solid defenses, but Georgia has always been known to produce solid defense, and I believe that they have really turned the defensive year around a lot, especially showing that against Alabama. Holding Alabama to -3 rushing yards, where yes, you, the viewer, had more rushing yards than Alabama. That is no joke. You can't tell me it is easy to go in a championship game and hold a team to -3 rushing yards. Now, I know I'm talking about Georgia and Bama in that game, but I'm just kind of like bringing up what Georgia has done through the season, how they developed, and how and why I think they can go toe to toe with the Buckeyes and uh, win. The thing is with Ohio State, their hole against Georgia that Georgia's going to exploit is Ohio State inability to play against good defenses. They will score. They will score, and it might take Georgia some time to, lock in a little bit. But that is the one thing that Ohio State, couldn't really do well against with Indiana. Indiana, Ohio State made a good defense, and they just couldn't score. They couldn't score really well at all, and I believe that they'll meet a Georgia defense and kind of look similar. I think Georgia will take this one. I know that's wild coming from me, but that's why I really tried to analyze this on a level for people to see, who aren't Georgia fans. What I've witnessed as a Georgia fan all season and kind of like a factual statement and how this team is developed. Because I don't want to make it just seem all biased. But this is why I think we can go toe to toe with Ohio State. Well, we'll, meet Indiana in the national championship, which now this is going to be interesting. We got Indiana versus Georgia in my matchup. Oof. I am bold for saying that I really do think that also seeing how Indiana went up against a good defense, they couldn't score as much either because that was a close game. So obviously, Georgia and Indiana will be close if it ever happens. If this matchup does happen, it will be close. I really do feel that. Indiana versus a Georgia defense. I know I'm about to be criticized for this, but let me ask you, let me ask you something. Who's that coming down the track? It's the Mean Machine in red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land than the drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan. Go dogs! Go dogs! Go dogs! Go dogs! Stick 'em! Ooh, 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 ooh. Give me the dogs!
Who could have seen this coming?
It's a shocker. You guys are barking a bunch of, like,
I
12-year-olds
know.
now.
I know. This is. I'm talking about an Indiana team, Georgia. My own team, Georgia, taking on an Indiana team and winning. But I have confidence in my team that they can, they can take a team's hope for the championship and be like, oh, that's a total heartbreaker. Because as much as I am for Indiana taking it all, you know, in a Cinderella road after all those years of rebuilding and all that stuff, look, my team's there. I'm gonna want them to win it, regardless of who they play. But
Yeah.
my reasoning is Indiana also has to play against a primed Georgia defense. And it's not light work. It's not light work at all. And I'm not saying that Indiana couldn't win this game. They could absolutely beat the brakes off Georgia if Georgia doesn't play in, because I know how Georgia will do it. Sometimes they won't lock in. This all depends, by the way. All these predictions that I've put out all depends on if Georgia, you know, the team that we saw play against Alabama, comes out to play like that. And that's what I'm counting on, is that this Georgia team will. And if Indiana plays against a prime Georgia defense of this season, it'll be hard for them to score. We've been in a scenario where we've upset a Heisman winning team. You know, the 2017 Oklahoma versus Georgia in the Rose Bowl. I know that was a long time ago, but we have a history for doing that.
The Baker Mayfield callback.
Yep, I know that's kind of crazy, but Georgia has a history about like upsetting teams that have a Heisman winner. I don't know. It's just always been that way. But obviously you can't look back that far. This season, you got to focus on this season. Like I said, I feel like the defense will buy us enough time and put a lot of pressure, because, you know, there might not be a whole lot of sacks in the game, but Georgia knows how to apply pressure, and that could send Fernando Mendoza scrambling a good bit. And, you know, it could make him panic a little bit. And I believe that the pressure of the Georgia defense might be a little too much for Indiana. And I believe that leaves our offense enough, you know, availability and room to score on them.
Yeah.
But that is who I choose for my national championship. And you're over there twiddling your thumbs. You got anything to say about that?
I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm just gonna let the games play for themselves, because I have opinions on Georgia, but I'm not. You know what? I've said my piece. You all know my bracket. Apparently the rest of you don't agree. I took the easy way out.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure that unless if there's anything you guys want to say, I'm pretty sure that kind of wraps up our prediction.
It does.
Yeah, no, I say thanks so much for having me. Go Ducks, and I'm excited for the playoff.
I'm just shocked that a team that's scared to play Louisville next year is the one you think is going to win the national title.
I'm never escaping this. I'm never escaping this. I'm never escaping this. See, I wanted to play Louisville as much as you
the toothy bird. We fear the toothy bird.
Oh,
Miami.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you go check out my other socials. I'll leave it in the description. I'll also leave Sheeb's socials in the description and Red's socials in the description. And make sure to go check out the Jersey Tales on Blue Sky and Twitter, YouTube, Spotify. We do a lot of sports podcasting, and we're picking back up on it. And we love to see you around. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed our bracket predictions. And until next time, see you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.